Hi, everyone. I'm Mallory Sofastaii with WMAR 2 News, and I'm here with Angie Barnett, President and CEO of the Better Business Bureau serving Greater Maryland, and we're here to talk about COVID-19 related scams. Angie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mallory. This is such fun. Sadly, we're talking about scams amidst COVID, so that's heartbreaking, but thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And this is a live discussion. So we want to hear from anyone watching. If you've been seeing any scams, if you have questions about something, whether it may be a scam or not, anything that you want to pass along to your friends and family members or are curious about, feel free to chime in. Angie is the expert of scams. So now's an opportunity.
Yeah, of all the weird things to be to have knowledge of. But for Mallory, for BBB, we get information from both people who file complaints. So their complaint detail tells us of their customer experience, as well as the tool Scam Tracker. And I can't thank you enough because you frequently use Scam Tracker and say, I'm seeing an uptick in these types of scams, or I see this scam has been reported. So for your viewers, that Scam Tracker tool is so important to report so that you're able to tell viewers a larger audience and we're able to put out reports. So, thank you so much. And that's how we get the information and sort of become knowledgeable of the scams of the world.
It really is an incredible resource because not only can you filter by state, you can filter by zip code. You can look at the different types of scams, COVID-19, employment, et cetera, advanced fee scams. But it doesn't release any personal information. It doesn't say who the report's coming from, but it just details if it's a business, if it's a website, what the name of it is, and how much some people have lost. I know we were just talking, I was just on it, an employment scam. Someone just reported losing $4,000.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that that's one of the biggest things you're hearing about right now?
It is. Excuse me, for Scam Tracker, there are two, they sort of run neck to neck. One goes up a little higher one week and one the next week. But the two things we are seeing are the employment scams, and we'll talk about all the reasons why. And then second are the fake websites. Now, logically, that would make sense. The fake websites, which is the real term that's used in Scam Tracker, is online sales or online scams. But the fake websites are obviously in response to everything from toilet paper to PPE, everything you're seeing because everybody's using online now in their searches.
And also because there's been a delay with some of the Amazon products. I know people are looking for other websites. They're looking for other sources. And like you said, toilet paper. I mean, I've received a number of emails of people who have lost money trying to buy toilet paper online, or eBay. They've seen it, posted for $75. But also you mentioned the masks. There are a ton of websites out there selling the masks, but I feel like you never really know if you are going to get what you paid for. So in that situation, how would you vet a website?
Yeah, and it's a huge risk. You are literally rolling the dice. So the couple of things that I do when I'm using a website is, first of all, I'm going to put in the name of that website in my web browser and simply use the word following: scam or complaint, to see if others have reported any problems with that website. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the terms and condition, the privacy policies. I want to know, where is this business located? I'm not saying don't buy products from China. I am saying that one of your challenges is the length of time it takes now to get products, so there's a delay. So on legitimate websites, people buying from legitimate businesses, a lot of our complaints is that delay in time. I ordered a product 3 weeks later, I haven't gotten it. So I want to know where that company's located. Can I contact them? And if it's coming from overseas, what are their terms and conditions for returning? Another thing you and I talk about all the time is looking for all the key indicators that this website is secure. A scammer is not going to go to the trouble and the expense of securing a website. So we want to look for that little padlock that closes. We want to look up in the web browser the URL to make sure it says HTTPS. S is the big thing, not just HTTP. And those indicators help us have more confidence that the website is. And what you and I do is you then go to whois.net. I put in that website, and if that website popped up yesterday, it may give me pause. It may cause me to reconsider, do I really want to put my money in? And then the other protection you have is always paying for these products, especially, the protective gear, especially groceries, the supplies you need. Use a credit card when you're doing those online purchases. That credit card company, if it's a fake website, can help. You can dispute those charges. That credit card company can help give you an extra layer of protection. Not your debit card, Mallory, your credit card.
And hi to Beth and Kimberly who commented. Just a reminder, we are live, so if you have questions for Angie, you want to chime in, feel free to do so in the comment section. And Angie, just to backtrack to what you said about credit cards, another thing that I've come across more and more is with PayPal. There's somewhat of a loophole where, you think it is a reputable payment option and method, and a lot of people do it. But like you said, if you do order something and it comes from China, in order to be reimbursed by PayPal, you have to send the item back. And PayPal will reimburse you up to a certain amount. I think it's up to like $35. But sometimes it costs more than $35 to ship it back to China. So you're going to be out whatever, additional. And then, if you send it back, you don't know for sure if they'll accept the return shipping. There's just a lot that can go wrong. So I think credit card, like you said, is kind of your best option. It
really is. And Mallory, I'm a huge PayPal proponent. I use it for my own online shopping. It does give me a layer of protection. It's sort of like that escrow account. They hold the product till I get it, or there's some services or protections you get with it. But I think the limitations you need to be aware of and make an informed decision as to, if you're ordering from a retailer you're familiar with, PayPal makes it quick and easy. If you're going to that unknown, I really encourage people to go straight to the credit card. And just always a reminder to everybody, people say, well, I don't really want to rack up the credit card debt. And I get it right now. Mallory, I'm very conscious of that. I'm trying to hoard my money. I'm trying to do all those things that advisors are sharing with us. But using your debit card when you're for online purchases really exposes you. Your bank has so fewer protections than a credit card, and you run the risk of them being able to use that debit card number and draining your bank account, getting into your savings account. So that's the difference. You just don't have the protections, and you have greater exposure.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that with Venmo, it's not designed for business transactions. It's for person to person, someone you know. So if the website's only accepting Venmo or debit card or, something other than credit card, that's like a huge red flag.
It is. And I'm so glad you brought that up. And the other thing to add to that is when a website, a text, anybody's communicating and say to you, pay me with iTunes card, go to Walmart and get a gift card and pay me that way, that is always a red flag. And I'm so amazed at how people believe that seems like a viable option for making that payment. So that, all of those are red flags you see in these fake websites. And back to where I didn't mean to take us down a bunch of rabbit holes there, but back to your original scam tracker, fake websites, online sales of fake websites is number one. Employment scams is number two. They go net to net. And when we later on, I'd like to just make sure we mention when we're talking about the fake websites, the resurgence of the puppy scams.
Let's talk about that now, because I'm walking around outside with my dog and I see all these cute new puppies and I really want one. I'm hearing like all the shelters are cleared out because I'm a proponent for adopt, don't shop.
Yeah.
Um, but if there's no puppies to adopt, some people turn online and now's the perfect time to have a puppy, or at home you can train it, etc. But people are getting ripped off.
Yeah, and what's happened, and it will be a little better now, but scam artists took advantage of this opportunity. We're at home, isolated, and it is when a family's together, when we're together, it's a great opportunity to have companionship. But what happened locally, all our shelters were closed to protect the employees, to protect the animals, to protect us. So people started going online and actually ordering, um, purchasing pet online, especially people who want that purebred, and that's what they want to do. So it's not that the puppy scam is new, but the resurgence has to do with people now needing companionship, social isolation, not having the easy access to the to be able to adopt or foster dogs. So people were going online, and Marylanders are losing somewhere the least amount of money I saw lost $500. And I've seen in literally inching up in the thousands that have been lost on these puppy scams. And many of the puppy scams have two things. You're on a fake website, you see a puppy, you think, I want to give you my credit card, so you get that. So that's scam number one. Many scam artists have partners, and what will happen are days later after conversation. And remember, in this scam, they do build a relationship. They talk to one another, but they'll have a partner. The partner sends a new email that says, oh, your puppy is stranded due to COVID restrictions at the airport. Add this, we need a crate, we need climate control, we need this. And they start bleeding you out of money. And because they've created a relationship via email, text, sometimes even phone conversation, people trust more. They have a relationship. I believe this is true, and it sounds plausible. So I just wanted to toss that one out on this fake or these bogus websites that it just broke my heart when I saw, oh man, we've got an uptick in these scams now.
Right. And like you said, I mean, they just come up with any excuse possible. Oh, there's a delay because of COVID-19. It got, stopped in the customs process and we need an additional amount, or, the dog is stuck here.
Yeah.
If you want the dog to be okay, pay this much money.
Yeah. And Mallory, that's the thing is, you and I talk about it, you may want to go, how did people fall for this, or why does this make sense? But it does, because scammers are, first of all, brilliant. They know the psychology. There's so much psychology, and they just know how to capitalize on an event and make a scam plausible, or more plausible, more likely to make sense by making it relevant to what's happening right then and now.
And to your point about, anyone can fall for this, from January to May 20th, the Federal Trade Commission received 50,000 overall reports of COVID-19 complaints and 37.16 million total fraud loss. I mean, it can really happen to anyone.
Yeah.
It's sometimes it is very obvious, other times it's not.
That is a lot of money, and that's a lot of people hurting. And I will see what COVID did to us that you and I have not necessarily seen as we've covered scams over all these years. When you started at 12 years of age, and we've been working together, so ever since you and I, we have this perfect storm. You have social isolation, you have people using the internet for everything, searching for jobs, making life surviving purchases like masks or groceries, social isolation, increased use of online. And I would say those things combined with the financial volatility. People are financially vulnerable. If I still have a job, thank you. I'm so thankful. But I am looking at my money expenditures and my ability to save for that retirement I thought was really going to happen sooner. Um, you know, we're more vulnerable. So those three things together is the perfect storm I've never seen.
And let's get into employment scams. I know I've received a few heartbreaking emails where people who need a job and need money instead lose more money to these scams. So what are kind of the most common ones you're seeing, and what do people need to ask or do when they are job hunting?
Yeah. So our employment scams, and it's really interesting, when COVID first hit, employment scams were on the scene before the stimulus check scams, everything that has followed. There were the fake websites selling protective gear. Second was the employment scams, and it has remained consistent. What we originally saw was simply people beginning to lose their jobs, and they were using the internet to apply for jobs. And what would happen is they would find a website, click on it, and it could be, in many cases, a fraudster who would set up a website promoting jobs that didn't exist or jobs they stole from a legitimate source. And they were luring people in simply to get personal identifying information. And they get that two ways: by what is logical and reasonable, filling out an application for employment, and they would ask for your banking information, your social security, because in all jobs, we eventually give that information. So that it started off with the personal identifying information, or it could be I clicked on that website to apply for a job. It released malware into my computer. So there were different things. But how this scam has progressed to me is a little bit alarming, because the second we started talking about there are jobs across the country for contact tracers, people who actually work with people who've been exposed to and are doing that tracing. Those jobs were plentiful. So scam artists set up websites and links to contact tracers, and people were applying for jobs that they didn't. And the second thing we just began to see that I'm not that familiar with, these scammers were then asking for photo IDs.
Really?
All right. So you got everything happening for massive identity theft. Photo ID, I can rip you off. I can apply for passports. I can apply for so much with a photo or a photo ID. So why does an employer who's hiring you for remote work need a photo of you?
And we did something on this yesterday, and I looked at Maryland's website on contact tracing, and it says right there, on caller ID, it'll say MD COVID, I believe, if it's a contact tracer, but it also said they will never ask for photos or videos of any kind. And, no personal information unrelated to COVID-19, obviously no banking information or social security number, but it's, so unfamiliar to people. They may not know, they may, be more trusting or.
Yeah. And it's, I'm perpetuating my own thing, because I'm going, so how do we know this is real? How do we know this is real? Because the thing I'll add on top of that is, once that information becomes accessible, available, public, familiar, scammers, it's so easy to spoof a phone number and make it look like that number comes up on your phone. It's spoofed. And now you're having a conversation with what you think is somebody who's wanting to hire you. So it's a scam that shoots out in 1,000 different ways. And I would say, if you say, well, what's one piece of advice? If you see a job that you think is real, and they're not immediately hiring you without an interview or reviewing your qualifications. And I would go straight to the source. Don't use a phone number on the application, on the website. Go to a different source and contact that potential employer and say, are you hiring? Did you submit an ad through? I saw this information. Is this legitimate? Actually, talk to them. Get a verification before you start spilling out a lot of information about yourself.
And I just want to say that I actually got my first job through a listing on Craigslist. And it was a legitimate marketing job. But, you know, I don't know if I would trust that in today.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Thanks for sharing that too. I learned something new about you.
I'm just thinking of, there are so many different places to go.
There are.
I just don't know that I would trust that right now. But if you are able to go to the source, like you said, there should be no shame in just asking, hey, was this job listing, posted by you?
Absolutely.
I think it shows initiative.
The thing about Craigslist is it's free, and it's been a long-term tool we've used. And, but in today's time, it's still worth looking into, but you have got to just do your homework. And that's something you tell people all the time, along with, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. If they're hiring you at a high salary that's not what the market normally is. If they're hiring you without an interview or even looking at your credentials and do they match? I mean, that's too good to be true. But you're down to the point that if you're serious, don't give information. Take the time to do your homework and call and simply say, are you hiring? And, go to trustworthy sources. I mean, our local chambers around here, they're starting to publish job openings. More people are cognizant that there are so many people looking for work because their job's not going to come back. And so go to legitimate sources. And if you find one, like on Craigslist, do that homework.
And just to plug our website, WMAR2news.com/Rebound Maryland, we are posting job listings there as well as tips on how to nail a virtual interview, how to polish your resume. A lot of people are looking for remote workers, so we have job listings there. But also, a recent email I got about an employment scam involves the office equipment, which I think is really interesting. It's confusing how it works because here you get the job and then they say, oh, but we need to send you this office equipment. You have to pay for it first. How exactly does that work again? Is it the check scam thing, or do you have to pay for the office equipment up front and then you just don't get your money back?
Yeah, it's the upfront. The job never existed. It's not real. But you've paid for something that you'll never get. There used to be a time when, those were called work at home schemes because nobody worked at home. So one way, if I was interested, if I was a mom, if I was a caretaker for someone working from home, there were so few jobs. And those work at home schemes most often were around. You would eventually get the job, and then you would be asked to pay an upfront fee for something. And that something can be a credit report on your credit. It could be for office equipment or supplies to use in the job. In some cases, you actually got some semblance of supplies. Maybe, you're going to make jewelry pieces for them, or you're going to do envelopes. You might actually get something, but it was junk. It was worthless. And again, it wasn't a real job. So the idea there is that upfront fee. And best if you're given in a credit card, because then they can do a credit card, but yep, that is a very typical scheme and scam. But now it's really working because we really are working from home.
Yeah, so you should never pay money if you haven't even received any money.
Exactly. I would never say yes to any job that requires me to do that. And it's really interesting because by law, Maryland employers are not required in the state of Maryland. Employers are not required to pay for whatever it takes for you to set up a work from home office. There are regulations that do say I don't have an obligation to cover that as an employer expense. So back to that psychology and that brilliance of scammers, they can see all these moving pieces and why a scam is plausible. So, it's just what I never want your viewers to do is to feel bad, feel embarrassed, or have that sense of shame when they fall victim to, because I get why it makes sense for so many people.
I couldn't agree more. And, obviously I talk to a lot of people who have fallen victim and they are hesitant to come forward, but I let them know that by doing so, you could be helping someone else, because these scammers, they get one person, they're just going to try the next, and they're just going to keep going and going and going.
Right.
And, they can shift and adapt, but they'll try the same avenue that they fooled the first person. And really by speaking out about it, you could help someone else.
Oh, it makes a whole lot of difference. It's just like so many topics that you guys cover. It's helping me not feel ashamed and no, keeping me from thinking I'm the only one. And so when you tell your stories with victims or people who've had these experiences, you're really helping with that assurance that you're not alone, you're not the only one, and these are the 1,000 reasons. You and I have really covered a lot of reasons, checking off boxes why people fall for these things.
And the more people report one scam, the more likely law enforcement is to do something about it.
Exactly.
Especially with the FBI, sometimes they have a certain threshold where, it needs to meet a certain number of fraud loss in order for them to pursue these bad actors. So if people can just keep reporting.
Yeah, and that is I'm still glad you brought that up. One of the really good points, Mallory, is BBBs across the U.S. and Canada. We are all linked. We go into and feed into one database. That's why you can find out about a business located in California or Canada. That is the reason why you can actually find out about scams through Scam Tracker everywhere, is because we're linked. What we do with our information is annually, periodically, we load all our information so that into the FTC, a shared combined fraud unit. So our information goes in, the FBI's, the FTC, all different organizations pool their information so that you get statistics, you get all of that, and you know what's really happened and what the loss is, where Maryland ranks. And by the way, Mallory, year after year, Maryland ranks in the top 10 every year for identity theft and overall fraud. So, and I believe sometimes that's possible because we are actually more. We have a lot of computers. We have a lot of technology in our community.
And we have a question from Kelly Groft. What about charities? There are a lot of people in need. How do we know it's legit?
Yeah, that's a great one. And it's really funny because Scam Tracker is just now reporting some charity fraud. So there's I'll talk about that very briefly, and then how do you know? So what's being reported is, we used the word earlier, spoofing. We have some local Maryland charities that they are, somebody has stolen their identity doing solicitations, taking the money, and it's not going to the real charity. So they didn't just scramble up the name or post a fake website. They're using a real charity. Wow. So now we're back to the same piece of advice. If you are solicited and you want to give to something, first of all, I always say go local. It's the best way and best resource, because you want to make sure the money is going where there are people boots on the ground. You can see the work and you know it's happening. If it is a cold call solicitation, but it tugs at your heart, you need to go to your web browser and a couple of places. BBB.org rates and ranks charity. We actually have that information on our give.org, GIVE.org. But there are other resources that will post if a charity is real. For a charity to solicit in the state of Maryland, a charity or a nonprofit must actually be registered with the Secretary of State. So pick up the phone and call the Secretary of State and make sure that nonprofit is registered with them. IRS, that's another resource. The IRS actually publishes the 990s of legitimate charity. So I have a foundation as part of BBB. My foundation is registered with not only the Secretary of State, but we do a 990, which is a tax form. The IRS has that. Those are ways to verify legitimate charities. That is, to me, the best ways to tell. You also simply do what we always say, and that is take the name, put it up in your web browser, the word complaints or scams, and see if anybody's reporting. But if they're not registered and not filing a 990, I say really that's cautious. Now, a little league, they're not going to be registered and they're not going to file a 990. So I'm talking about when you're making a significant contribution to what you think is a national or a state or a legitimate charity. Raising money to help prepare meals for our first responders. That's an example. Make sure that's real.
And you mentioned the Secretary of State. You can actually go on their website. They have an online database, and you just type it in. You'll be able to see, the name of the organization, how many annual reports they've filed, because they're required to submit that as well to the Secretary of State. And then Charity Navigator, you mentioned some other websites aside from give.org. They actually break down how they spend their fundraising expenses, how much goes to marketing, how much goes to the CEO. So if you really want to be smart about where your donation is going and how it's being used, you just have to do some research. And I think that's the point of all of these different scams we see and vetting companies and websites. You have to be your own investigative reporter. It really takes a lot.
You do, because nobody has money to waste. We all want to be very careful. And then that leads you to a real quick mention, starting to see an uptick in crowdfunding, where people are using GoFundMe, using the crowdsourced method of gathering and posting out there a cause. And what I always want people to remember is, when I give to GoFundMe, it's usually not to a nonprofit, so it's not tax deductible, and it's usually to an individual with a cause, and that can be really great. But know who was the originator, who started that. What was it about? And is there a connection locally? Why do you want to give? Because there are no guarantees. They do their best. GoFundMe does their best. Many of these legitimate places do their best to screen, but they can't do it 100%. So scammers do get through.
Let's talk social media, because being at home, a lot of people are spending their time on social media. You get bored, you just browse through your feed. I think I've seen some of the wine exchanges again. I've seen a lot of misinformation. What are you all seeing as far as
it's like, okay, do we have 3 or 4 more hours?
Before you start, just one more thing. We are live. Ask your questions to Angie. Any concerns you have, anything you've been seeing, feel free to chime in. And especially now that we're talking about social media, if there's anything you're seeing in your feeds, let us know now. So sorry, go ahead, Angie.
No, please. All right, so social media, obviously, let's start with the advertising. So there's so much advertising there, and it is no different than you getting an email with a link or you're browsing and online and you see it. You cannot believe that every ad you see in Facebook is a legitimate product or service. They do the best they can, and they actually have a place where if you see a bogus fake website, they want you to report it immediately. You cannot trust all the social media advertisements. So let's just say that. And once you click on for a product, you want to do all the basic task we said earlier about making sure it's legitimate, because you're ultimately going to be ordering that product from a website. Okay, so don't trust, be cautious. But the other thing that we're seeing in social media is not just drawing you to the fake websites, but drawing you into an article that has a link. You click on the link, and it releases malware. That's very, very common. And something that, we're just, why that's so important is when you get a malware released into your computer, Mallory, you don't know it, and it may be set to not to be time release. It doesn't come up. You don't know it for 30 days or 60 days. And in the meantime, you've opened up your bank account, your credit cards, you put in your password, and it's copying your keystrokes. So those are the things that really make me very cautious, are the advertising in social media and the trends that will draw you to an article. You click on a link releasing malware. So those are the I gotcha moments. But you're still seeing employment ads in social media. You're seeing it where it tells you a friend, a friend likes this, so you need to like it. And then we saw the pyramid scheme come back through social media. We saw this ability that says if the stimulus plan, if I invest $500, I'll get 1,500 or 15,000 back. And that was perpetuated. The same pyramid scheme, the chain letter kind of concept, it was perpetuated through social media.
Actually, one of our producers sent me something recently where it was the same pyramid scheme with like the secret sister wine exchange or something, but it was with $100. So it was, if you send $100 to this person and this person sends $100 to the other person, then you'll end up getting $1,000.
Yeah.
And when you like stop to think about it, you think, oh, okay, yeah, maybe that'll work. But it's illegal, like you said, and also it's not going to happen.
No, the only people who win, it's a pyramid scheme. So the people at the top are the ones that actually make money from the gullible people at the bottom. So social media has really been a source for perpetuating that one as well. Yeah. And I'll see the other one, and I never make friends on this, so I'm just going to say it. I just want to say to everybody, please stop answering the surveys as to what is your favorite and what do you look like and post a picture of your first car and those kinds of things. Mallory, it could be a scammer and it can be a marketing firm. Either one, I don't know. But the scammers, they're going to have you post a photo of your favorite or your first car, because that is a security question. And so many of our online banking, our credit cards, etc., they ask those questions in those securities. So if you ask enough surveys, and people think they're fun on Facebook, on any platform, and they answer, eventually a scammer can accumulate enough information, they could do really well. And the day that I went, stop, was everybody I knew, they were posting their high school graduation photos. So it's the year, the mascot of your graduation.
Yeah.
That's frequently one. The year, where did you graduate? From what community, what high school did you graduate? Who was your mascot? Those are all security questions. and and they dated it. It was a year. So now I know how old you are. And so to me it was you just got to stop doing that. And they are fun, and I want to know what I'm going to look like, or what, all of those questions. And then the other piece is, it can be a legitimate marketing firm that's putting those out, but you are feeding into the information. And election time, candidates are going to start popping up based upon what they believe to be your likes and dislikes. So
That's
it's
yeah.
crazy. Yeah,
That's such an interesting point, because it's like you see the quizzes where it's like, what kind of wine are you? Take this
yes,
quick
yeah,
quiz. And you're like, okay. And I have to call my grandma, I think, every week and tell her, stop taking these quizzes. They just automatically populate on her feed like, I am this wizard or animal or whatever. But with the graduation thing, that wasn't a quiz. That wasn't a link you clicked on. That was just kind of a social movement where you don't know that you're giving away more information than you should.
boy, and people were giving it away. So, I know that doesn't make me popular. I know that's a problem. I'm just saying, I just, please be careful and know, again, the originator, if he does it. And if just because Facebook tells you that your best friend sent you something doesn't always mean they did. So you really need to check. Oh, Mallory, and the other one I just saw. Yeah, speaking of friends, I had to go to a friend and say, I'm really sorry, but you need to take that down, because they were posting a coupon for $150 from Lowe's. And first of
That
all,
would come in handy right now.
yeah, exactly. This was 2 weeks ago, I promise. So the Lowe's, the coupon looked very legitimate, and what I made me go, what is it referenced at the very top of a website that was Lowe's.uk, as in the United Kingdom.
Right.
And I'm going, okay, this is not the Lowe's we know and love. And even if you go to Lowe's website, they have all the fake the warnings to avoid this. They're not giving it away. But I had a dear friend that was, saying, look, guys, everybody should be doing this. And I said, no, we shouldn't, because they're not real.
Right. That's like we do it over Christmas time, where it's Macy's with an E. It's these lookalike websites that they get you to click on. And I think you mentioned earlier, right when the pandemic had started, that, Starbucks was offering free coupons or gift cards, and it's because they wanted to generate business. They knew there was going to be a downturn, but they're just, no one's giving away free stuff like that.
Exactly. And the whole bit is because I clicked on the Lowe's ad that said, I'm going to get $150. And I did do a little bit of, it's a survey. I'm giving away a ton of information. And in the end, I really will get a coupon. It's just not legit. Lowe's isn't going to give me $150. So, it just is, so, but that was one that recently, happened. And I don't know about you, but sometimes it's like people just go, here you come again, taking away all the fun.
Social media police over here.
I know. That's how it feels.
Any other scams that you want to talk about that you're seeing while we have you? And just a reminder, we are live, so if you have questions, comments, feel free to do that now or add it in so that we can get to them.
Well, you know me, I'm going to sit here and go, I thought of 1,200 things that we should have talked about. But I mean, we did cover a lot of generalities, and not to speak in the generalities, but there is a common theme. We're more vulnerable, we're more susceptible, we are online. There's all these things that can happen, and we just want people to really be cautious. For us, our scam tracker tool, definitely online sales, definitely employment scams, and just and the number 3 spot just vacillates with whatever is hot and heavy, like the stimulus scams, or right now it's our puppy scams. So but anyway, we just want people to I think the coolest thing that you do is you offer people, if you think you've been scammed, email me. You make yourself accessible so people can ask you, is this legit? And then the number two thing is when you call me and ask me. And that always makes me really happy.
Angie, have you been seeing this one? With BBE too, I've been doing that. You know, now I have this great relationship with them where it's always, I'll get these emails and it looks like a scam. It turned out the other week, it was actually a rebate check that someone received from a home audit, but they weren't sure. And that's the thing, you need to just verify and check. And, you know, like you said, especially now, people so desperately want to believe that that job offer is real, that they do want to pay them, you know, this crazy amount, but you just can never be too safe. And it's better than losing, you know, more money later on, just to double check now. And
it just makes such a difference. And again, there's no shame. The shame is, you know, it is just non-existent because there's so many ways that we can be had. And what you want to do is just have this, even in social isolation, that you have people you can trust and reach out to. So you know, I think that's what's important. So.
Well, thank you, Angie, for joining us.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. You know, I'm such a fan of Mallory and things that matter to Mallory. I'm such a fan, and I feel like the station is part of my family in a way. We've been together 14, 15 years. That, you know, we've had this relationship. So this is always my honor to do this, and I hope there was helpful information as well.
Absolutely. And I'm a big fan of yours, so I appreciate it. And like Angie said, if you do see something, if you didn't get a chance to weigh in, email me, Mallory at WMAR.com, and definitely check out the BBB Scam Tracker tool at bbb.org/scam tracker. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.